Okay.
Okay.
We can just get comfortable and let yourself settle in. Remembering that in this moment, there is nothing that needs to happen. In this very moment, everything is just as it is. And perhaps you feel yourself rooting into this moment. Like a tree roots into the soil. Feeling yourself feel safer, more and more present. And deeply right here. Letting the soil of the here and now hold you and support you.
And as you feel present like this, you can let something joyful enter. Your true self is knocking on your door. Wanting you to open it with its light. So simple and so close. It's like our true self wants to come in and have a cup of tea with us. And it's the easiest one to be with. And it's actually the only one. And just hear the words, the joy of true identity. The true identity is the joy. And just allow whatever feels like it is in the way. We can just take another look at that. And release it. Nothing has ever been easier. It takes no time at all. This true identity is so right, so happy, so simple, so vast, and totally welcoming. So yeah, since it is here so present, we can just start this meeting. We can come back from the meditation. And we can explore what is here to explore together. What is on your heart tonight, today? Yeah, but this joyful, true identity came to mind, or came here. It's very present and available and open to join around anything. Maybe you want to share your expansive. Barret has had some amazing, very deep experiences.
It's true. Yeah. Could share a few things. Yeah. Just opened, I guess you could say, during recent meditations. And just today I was meditating, and well, maybe I'll start with the one before that. I had this sort of practice of
Start with the egg.
start with the egg.
Mm.
Okay.
That's it.
I'll go in order that they happen. So yeah, this one was a few weeks ago, but I had this really just big experience. And I had this sense of it was like a bird, but it wasn't really a bird because it was beyond time and space. It wasn't physical, but it was this sort of massive bird that I guess represented more than the universe. It was the immensity of mind. And this bird laid an egg, and the egg was dead. It was like stillborn, but it was not, there was just no life to it. And I knew really clearly that this egg was time and space. That the bird symbolized the mind, what we could call the Son of God or the sonship. And the mind gave birth to this dead egg that is the universe of time and space.
It can be interpreted in coarse terms like the Son of God fell asleep and dreamt a dream, and this dream is actually the egg. It's the whole world.
And I saw this egg, it was like kind of a big egg, but it was nothing. And it was so clear to me that this life, this body, this form that I've believed myself to be, was just like a tiny microscopic bit of this egg, almost like moving through the egg, but it was like nothing either. It was like nothing moving through a dead nothingness. And so it was really big. The whole experience was huge. And just the awakening or the seeing it was just very impactful.
And then today you had.
So, and there's one other experience yesterday. Well, they kind of were one experience, but I opened into kind of beyond the body, and my mind initially went into a cactus. And it was sort of like this experience. Well, I think that this is me, Barret is me, but the mind could just as easily identify as a cactus that's growing on the road outside of our house by the roadside. But then I knew that wasn't what I was. I felt guided to let go of that experience. And then I stepped into this experience of the sun, like being the sun. And it was all this energy, like just pouring through and like rushing through. And then this experience kind of folded into today's, where I kind of went back to the cactus again. And I was like, but in my mind, what happened was the words, not it. Okay, not it. I'm not the cactus. And then my mind like kind of floated over to a tree. And then the words, not it. Like, okay, not a cactus, not a tree, not Barret, not this body, not anything in time and space. The whole world of time and space came to my mind and said, not it. This is not it. And it was just sort of this releasing of form, releasing of physicality, releasing of being on the timeline completely. And just enjoying that. Yeah, I don't know, the place beyond words, I guess. It's hard to talk about. and that image, when I saw today, I saw the whole world of time and space. I saw that dead egg again. I saw that it was a lifeless. There's nothing. There's no life there. I could focus on it or believe I was in it, but it was dead. So it's this realization I didn't have to believe that. I could. And then it happened as Jenny was sharing in this meditation just now. I saw, like, I was looking at the egg again. And it was like, I don't know, like almost like, if imagine like a big egg right in front of me, and I'm looking at it so close. It's like, at first, that's all I can see. But everything else, like going on infinitely in all directions, is just light. And as soon as I like take the egg away from my vision, all that's left is the light.
I'm thinking of the blanket in I Heart Huckabees, or I Love Huckabees, that movie. If you've seen it, there is the blanket thing, call it the blanket thing. And they describe that everything is on the blanket. A hamburger, an orgasm, they're the only things I remember. But everything is there, everything that is in time and space, are on this blanket. So you could translate this egg to this blanket. It's the same description. Everything is there, but there is not, it doesn't mean anything. It's all dead. And all your problems, all our problems and concerns and issues are so small, and they are they're in the egg, which is unreal and dead, stillborn. It was dead when it was born, when it seemed to come into being. Life is actually something else. So anything that has life, anything that you feel is like loving, this spark, is not from this universe. It's from the truth. And that's the only power we have. We have only the power of God to live on. So we could say we misused it when we used it for building up a small identity self here. But that is still with us, the true power of God. And now we can use it for forgiving the mess that we did with the ego, and forgive and wake up. Wow, that was a short, quick, powerful summary.
Yeah, drop the egg.
Yeah, so does anyone have anything you'd like to go into? So that we can drop this egg quicker. Just join on something.
Just this conversation, what you're sharing is helping me to see something differently that I experienced yesterday. I was going off with my dog to a local conservation area, so I was driving there. And I realized that there was a police car behind me and the lights went on. And immediately, I'm looking at how fast I'm driving. Is there something, am I doing something wrong? And I pulled over, and he just pulled up beside me rolled down his window. So I rolled down mine, and he said to me, well, thank you for pulling over. He said, I was trying to figure out why you were pulling over. And then I realized that I had hit the button that put And so, we just laughed about that and then rolled up the window and he carried on. But what happened for me was I just started to cry.
Hmm.
Because I felt this such intense fear that came up for me. Obviously, I'm still feeling upset now, even though I thought I kind of worked through, but it was so intense, this fear of what have I done wrong? Getting caught out on something that I don't understand, or and then with you just sharing right now, I thought to myself, well, maybe this situation was showing me that everything is okay. I'm expecting something to be wrong.
Hmm.
And it turned out not to be wrong. And I think so much of, things that, interacting in the world or certain relationships. And I still have this old fear of saying the wrong thing, or maybe I've done something wrong and I just don't know. I know that harks back to my relationship with my dad. Always going over the same stuff, but I think that's where that, well, in this lifetime, that's where that fear comes from. For me, that's, I think, the beginning of it in this experience is me. And it was just another opportunity to see that there's still triggers and fears that come up around that for me. But then when you were telling that story, and I thought, oh, yeah, okay. It was actually showing me that everything's fine. I don't need to worry so much, but I'm obviously still feeling a trigger from it when I thought about it just now.
Wow, that's good. It's yeah. Yeah.
The forgiveness layers and these things just seem to never go away. But that was helpful. That was certainly helpful to have that thought come to mind so that I could look at it differently.
Yeah. It feels good. It feels like, there is so much guilt in the mind and this belief that we have done something wrong, and then we interpret everything from that perspective, that we have done something wrong. But as we wake up, it's so beautiful. This is a good example. It was nothing.
Yeah.
He was just happy.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, just more layers of guilt and fear clearing away.
We have nothing to worry about, and you had nothing to worry about in the first place. I mean, that's the message.
Yeah.
We can all take that in. If you have, things that you think are serious problems and thinking you're wrong in some way, this is such a good example. Yeah. I'm just here to realize how innocent we are and how loved we are. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I could just say I feel so blessed to be here with you all. You just messaged me, Jenny, like 10 minutes before the meeting, and I'm just really feeling spirit, like how grateful I feel that this is even happening. Like, oh wow, a group of people coming together to share and awaken and heal together. I can just feel like the blessing of this. Yeah, I could share a little bit of the thing that I wanted to talk with you about, Jenny. I think I have some reluctance, a little, because it's still a little bit of a tangled knot in my mind. Like there's a little, like, I can't totally make sense of it. But maybe I'll just share a little snippet and see how it evolves. So I started a new job. It was actually quite divine how the job worked out. I'm a spiritual care coordinator, so I do like chaplaincy work in hospitals, and feels like really beautiful work. And I'm doing training right now, and part of the training, my mentor is teaching me, and because I'm working with like marginalized populations, and so he's like really wanting me to be like educated on things like racism and like oppressed populations. And it just brings up so many questions for me, because he's like very much in social justice, like the social justice world. And it just brings up so many questions for me about like reconciling what the Course in Miracles teaches and like social justice in the world. And it almost feels like such a big question for me that's why I'm like, I don't even know where to start, because my mentor is a Black man, so he's sharing with me all these ways that he's experienced racism, which I haven't experienced. And so there's just like all these questions for me about like to him, it's like such an injustice in the world, and he wants to make a difference in the world and educate people about it. And there's just questions for me around it, like how much is healing my mind, and how much of that, like when I shared a little bit of that, he said to me something like, oh, that's your white privilege, that you're able to just...
You probably cannot say anything.
Yeah, so I think he didn't say those words, but he kind of like implied like, oh, of course it's easy for you to just heal your mind because you're not you're not the victim of racism in all these ways. So yeah, it just feels like a huge topic, and I'm really, really like praying with it and meditating with it. And one other piece I'll share that's like really kind of come into my psyche is part of my training is learning a lot about slavery, and like how the slaves were treated and raped and abused and chained up, and just like these things that just like make me nauseous to read about. And I'm doing my lesson like today. It's my holiness blesses the world, or even before that, like all of these lessons, like I'm not a victim of the world I see. And I'm just thinking about like, if I was a slave with like getting abused and beat and raped, like how can I say I trust my brother who is one with me? I'm like, how can I fucking say that lesson? Or like, how could I say I'm not a victim of, I can feel emotion. Like, how could I say I'm not a victim of the world I see when I'm getting like abused? Or how could I say something like, I bless the world? Like, how can you, I can feel like a sadness around it. Like something that, how can these lessons feel true for someone when they're being abused or raped or whipped and chained up? And there's some way for me where I'm like, okay, I can say them because I'm not experiencing that right now. But are these lessons still true for someone in that situation? Like, I want to make sense of it. So I can just feel myself like really feeling some like false empathy, but that's my experience, like false empathy for people, for slaves, people that were treated that way. And like how can you say, like how could they make sense of that God is loving you in every moment, like while you're getting whipped? Like how can you feel the truth of that? It just seems so far away when someone's being tortured.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And it is, this is a journey of finding true identity, of realizing who you are, and it is a journey of looking at the belief in victimhood that takes so many forms. And it feels like you're in the middle of that, just getting a chance to really look at the belief in victimhood. And a couple of times you said, if I was that, or if someone is raped and whipped, how could they also do this lesson? And these are hypothetical thoughts because that is not happening. That's the if. And this whole world is actually an if. It's in an as if we could separate from God, then all those horrible things are real and can happen. And it can happen to me, it can happen to you, But that's how deep the awakening is, and the teaching of the course, it takes it to the core, and it's hard to understand. I mean, I'm sure you're the man who is educating you in the unfair views. In the minorities, whatever. He wouldn't agree, or he wouldn't grasp this, because in this world, most people are so identified as their persona, as who they think they are. And only when you have this call to awaken, you start to loosen from that. But you still, you still feel identified. You still feel those horrible things because there's still so much memory of it, and so much there. So it's a very good question. Because, I mean, the spiritual world, or the truth, and this world are like oil and water. They can't blend. like you can't mix the real and the unreal. So it is a different thought system. It's the world's thought system versus the spirit's, the wrong mind and the right mind.
So you're saying, like, don't bring the truth into the illusion.
Exactly.
Like, yes, within the illusion, there's victims and perpetrators. And yeah, I guess I'm not, I want to bring the mind higher than that. And I have in other situations, but this one feels hard. Like, I don't quite know how to, like how to bring the mind beyond that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that is the practice, to keep raising up whatever is reacting, this feeling of the victims and how sad it is and how horrible it is, to bring that to the light and keep doing that. And it feels good that you're doing the lessons. You can stick to your lesson when you hear these stories and these, you can stay in the right-minded thought system, at least practice that, allow that, and then just be in prayer. Is there anything to say? Maybe most of the time it isn't, because of this non-mixing, it doesn't, the world will never understand or accept awakening, because the world is the ego's world, and it's here to state that it is real. It's the only reality, and it's horrible, but it still wants to be real. Yeah.
Yeah, and I can sense that because of my role, I'm eventually going to have to speak my truth to my mentor. I know the moment's going to come because he's wanting me to stretch into the work. And I'm going to have to find my truth. I'm still getting clear within myself first. I can tell there's still more to do within myself before I express it. But I can feel that's part of why I'm there, is to get clear and share. I don't know how that's going to look yet, but I can feel that.
Yeah. I mean, if that's the Holy Spirit's plan, the Holy Spirit will do the talking, speak through you.
It just feels kind of invalidating in some ways to say, I want to see beyond the victims. I just imagine that feeling really invalidating for people.
Well, is it kinder to feel bad for someone or to love them?
In my mind, I'm like, can I do both? But it seems like there's a choice. Seems like there's a choice.
There is true empathy. That's, Jesus says, do not see suffering. Do not understand suffering. Definitely do not enter into suffering. He's saying, step back, take a step back, and let me relate through you, he says. And that's going to be loving. And usually it's observing.
Yeah, so if there's any way that I'm feeling bad for the victims, you're saying that's blocking me from loving them. Because it's pity. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really a small vision of who they are. It's not seeing their truth. It's not knowing your truth either. I mean, those two go hand in hand.
And when you say knowing their truth, it's like knowing that they're a child of God. They are at one. Yeah, it's true. I'm not seeing that. I saw an image of like this slave in chains and these like bells and just this like image that was traumatizing for me to see. They looked so fearful, like their eyes were big and terrified, and it's like I could not see the soul. I could not see the spirit. All I saw was the suffering. And I could see it. I'm like, I don't know how to see the soul. I don't know how to see the spirit. It's just fear in their eyes. And my fear.
Yeah. We had a recent session where we spoke about form, and nothing is so blinding as perception of form. And understanding is obscured in the perception of form.
So how would you see that? Like a slave chained up and like their eyes looked scared. Like, I don't know, how would you see it?
I don't think I would have any reaction if I would be shown an image like that. And if I would have a reaction, I would allow it to come up. I would pray, I would release it. I worked in my mind with the perception of those animal transports where they transport animals on the highway, because that seemed so horrific to me, and I worked a lot with my emotions around that, around how much the animals must be suffering, and it was good inner work. It was a workout. And now if I see a truck, like that, it's quite rare. I don't see it often at all, maybe twice a year. I don't know. I don't see it. It doesn't show up in my perception. But if I do, I actually feel neutral. I see the form pass by, and I know the Holy Spirit has it. Form is unreal. If there is any suffering, it's in the mind. And it means the mind is still healing.
It's like it's all in some ways the same, whether it's slaves or animal abuse or children abuse. It's like all of those things pull at my heartstrings. So I clearly, I'm seeing a lot of suffering in the world. Mm-hmm. That's the lens I'm seeing through. So it's helpful to hear. I'm like, wow, you wouldn't have a reaction. Like my initial thought is like, are you heartless? But then right after that, it's like, oh, you're seeing beyond it. You're seeing beyond it. But yeah, that's.
Yeah. Yeah. And we are not, out of this theme of abuse. In our group, we work a lot with that theme. Childhood abuse, memories, imprints, patterns. Yeah.
Well, thank you for taking time with this with me.
Yeah, thanks for sharing.
Mm-hmm. I feel grateful for this space.
It's good to meet you.
Yeah, it's good to meet you too. Mm. Yeah, I feel complete for now. I know there's more layers for me, but that's feels good for now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe we can read a line from True Empathy. It is such a good section. I don't know if you've read it, Danielle, the True Empathy in the course. It's chapter 16, part 1.
I think I'll have to read it again.
Yeah, I mean, the line that is so strong in my mind now is, to not enter in to the suffering. Because he's not saying like you won't perceive it, but don't enter into it and make it real. And he literally says, you must refuse to understand suffering. You must refuse to understand it. To empathize does not mean to join in suffering. That is not what you must refuse to understand. That is the ego's interpretation of empathy, and is always used to form a special relationship in which the suffering is shared. That's very sad. I mean, that's another sad thing in this world, how much false empathy is going on, how much shared suffering. It's so heavy because no healing can happen when we enter into suffering and share it. It just makes the suffering very real. So we need to step aside and let the Holy Spirit empathize through us. He does not understand suffering and would have you teach that it is not understandable. Holy Spirit would have you teach that suffering is not understandable. When he relates through you, he does not relate through your ego to another ego. He does not join in pain, understanding that healing pain is not accomplished by delusional attempts to enter into it and lighten it by sharing the delusion. And then he goes on to talk about that the clearest proof that empathy as the ego uses it is destructive lies in the fact that it is applied only to certain types of problems and in certain people. These it selects out and joins with. So it's very specific, particular things. And it never joins except to strengthen itself. Having identified with what it thinks it understands, the ego sees itself and would increase itself by sharing what is like itself. Make no mistake about this maneuver. The ego always empathizes to weaken, and to weaken is always to attack. And then he said, you don't know. You can say you don't yet know what empathizing means. Yet of this you may be sure, if you will merely sit quietly by and let the Holy Spirit relate through you, you will empathize with strength and will gain in strength and not in weakness. That's so beautiful, to sit by and let the Holy Spirit empathize through you. Feels so good. The Holy Spirit wants to love through you and just extend that.
Can I share one reflection in hearing that? I found that really helpful because I've been noticing since I've been reading about slavery and racism, I've been more fearful. Like I've been wanting to like lock my door at night, and it's almost like seeing the fear in my fellow brothers and sisters. It's strengthening the fear in me that like the world isn't safe and people are dangerous. So I'm seeing it's like, yeah, I want to choose true empathy, see their strength, and then I can feel my strength.
Yeah.
So thank you for reading that.
Yeah. And I like to see everything as a memories that you're working through. If you still have, issues or feelings coming up, it's because you still have some healing to do with certain topics. So it's like you're in some memories that have to do with slavery right now. So you're just clearing that. That's probably why you're there. And sitting there giggling. You want to share? Share what you're giggling about.
It just came a picture of that Karin have entered the position of her drawing upstairs.
Of the drawing above your head?
No, the
that one too. Yeah.
That one too.
Oh, her drawing in her room. Yeah.
Yeah, the one where she's lying really flat and her head is on that ledge.
In the little square box.
She's resting. She's getting ready for her flight tomorrow. I'm back here. Isn't that so, Karin? Yeah. Yeah, we can't get away from our memories. It just stays in my mind. To talk a bit more about the memories. It will be presented to us for healing. That's what, the whole world is that you see what you believe all the time. So it's a whole process, and I think it's helpful to see the whole world as your mind, as your consciousness, where you can keep releasing, keep handing over everything in perception. It tells you something about what you believe. But something that you don't really need anymore. So the message is, don't trust perception. Don't trust perception. It's projection. The eyes are made to project, and we're here to learn to truly see. And that's an inner experience. So it's not a seeing in the world. vision. Well, have a lovely, lovely rest of your days and nights, evenings, everyone.
Yeah, very sweet.
See you next time.